Took a little bit of time to get going this morning. Sorry about that. Got computer problems and all that. So happens when you take a 3-week hiatus. So sound good? Everybody's good on sound? All right, great. So well, it's good to be back with everybody after 3 weeks, and transitioned us from August into September. And what about you guys? I think May and September are my two favorite months. So beautiful this morning. So we're going to start back up, and our first session is going to be about control. And I apologize for this, for the my computer view. I couldn't get my camera to work, so we're just working off my my laptop. So so we're going to talk about control, something that is close to all of us, right? And something that we all kind of fall victim to at a certain point, and there's kind of good reason for that. And we'll get into all that. So maybe some of the chemistry and biologically what kind of brings us to the point where where control becomes important and all that. So, but this morning, we're going to talk about control is one of these things where it's kind of a knot that's really hard to untie and unwind, because the more you try to control things, actually, the less you control. Okay, because there are just physical limits to how much we can control, right? So we like to control our environment for some pretty good reasons, actually. Part of it is just physiologically how we're wired. We're wired for fight or flight, and everybody's kind of heard fight or flight, but it's a biological thing where that when our environment around us changes, okay, through literally thousands of years of programming. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard this before, but that our DNA, right, all of us, it's estimated that we carry about 20 generations of DNA in us from our ancestors. So we just naturally want to control our environment just from pure safety. And so, but it creates physical limits. So if you go back, thousands of years ago, hunter-gatherers, things like that, when there was a change in the environment, okay, when the environment became very quiet, or birds flew off, or there was, rustling in the woods or twig snapping or something like that, that represented a change in the environment. And that's where fight or flight kicked in. Okay, so your fight or flight reflexes, okay, are I'm either going to run, okay, flight, or I'm going to stand my ground, right, and that's fight. And so it's just naturally it's just naturally in us, okay, to want to control our environment just from pure safety. Okay, so if you go back 20 generations, right, it's a long time. All right, it's just pure safety. We want to control around what's going on around us, but that has physical limits. I think especially today, right, where we're not worried about marauding, Vikings or a pack of wolves or wherever the case may be that might have represented danger. For us, it's more contemporary things. It could be going into a meeting or being with somebody you're uncomfortable with, or your in-laws, or whatever the case may be, right? That they're not nearly kind of as threatening today as they were years ago, except the way our bodies react. And so when you take people that are, if you take somebody who's giving a speech for the first time, which can be very nerve-wracking, or an athlete getting ready to perform, okay? The person giving the speech is going to say, I'm nervous. The athlete, okay, top performing athletes, they're going to tell you they're excited. Physiologically, they're identical. Heart racing, palm sweating, breathing elevated, right? But it's the same thing, okay? It's simply a matter of how it gets labeled. And in this day and age, we don't have the same threats that kind of forced us to want to have a lot of control in the past, okay? Because we live in less environmentally treacherous times. And I think that's an important thing to understand about how we're built, how we're wired, and all that, because it explains a lot. So in our work environment, okay, so let's use a real one, right? In our work environment, we're upgrading our email server for security reasons and more user friendly features, right? But we're upgrading to a different email server. We're going from Google to Microsoft, right? Much better product, much higher level of security, especially in these day and age with all the stuff that's going on with cyber theft and all that. But immediately that there's a change, right? And that immediately, like we know, okay, that's going to make people nervous. Like, well, what's that mean? How's it going to affect me, right? And that's understandable because it's a change. But we have to understand it in the process of that. It's not a threatening change, okay? It's just a change. But we substitute changes in our environment today, which are generally non-life threatening, to what they were thousands of years ago when things were more perilous. And so we have to kind of understand that we're applying kind of old technology from our bodies and our physiology. Okay, we have this old template, and we've brought it forward into a modern world, which means that we really don't have to be too focused on controlling a whole lot. Okay, because when we try to control too much, okay, and at the end of the day, when you try to control too much, you actually control less, okay? Because for you to get the degree of control that will satisfy you, okay, you've got to make your world small. There's no two ways about it, okay? There are just physical limits to our ability to control things, okay? Like our arms are only this big, all right? Like, we only can influence, other people's decisions just so much. They have minds. They're going to do whatever it is they want to do, right? And so what happens is that in an effort, all inadvertent, okay, but in an effort to control everything around us, our world gets smaller, and we actually begin to unknowingly, okay, but we actually begin to narrow, all right, how much of life we can participate in. Because if I'm so focused on controlling everything, okay, then I'm not living. I'm not living life to the fullest. I'm not participating in whatever as many things as I want to or as I can participate in. Where am I getting the richness of the experiences? Okay, because it's hard for me to get that if I'm only focused on things that I can control or staying away from, navigating away. And a lot of this is subconscious too. We'll talk about that next week. Yeah, a lot of it is really subconscious. We're subconsciously navigating away from things where we feel we have less control over. And look, it's human nature. It's literally how we've been wired. But that wiring doesn't work well in this environment, okay, today where we are. So, think about the places, the times, the people where you've avoided things, kind of navigated away from them because maybe it felt like a little threatening, like, I don't know if I really can control this, or you may not even have had that active thought. But what it does is it narrows how we can participate in life. Because if we're kind of really too focused on control, then we're naturally going to steer away from things. Now, this doesn't mean that like we're all just control freaks over every aspect of our life. Okay, there's some parts of our lives that we're pretty free and easy with, and there's other parts that we're curious with, and there's other parts that not so much. I want to have control over this. And so find those areas. We'll talk about that in just a second, right? You want to be finding those areas where you are maybe trying to exercise to control, and where it is kind of narrowing your ability to participate. So what to do about it? So, you know, we really can't control the world around us. Okay. Now, don't hyperventilate. I know that's probably disconcerting, but we really can't. Okay. There's so little we have control over. Right. What we can control though is how we interact with the world around us. So we can't really control the world around us, but we can fully control how we interact with it. And that's really where the richness comes with how do we interact with something. It's like, how do we show up? Okay. Do we show up full, rich and curious, or do we kind of show up kind of shadowy and with timidity, right? And so I think just understanding that we really can't control much around us, but we really can control how we interact with the world. And so to for preparation to next week, okay. So the next time you feel the urge to control, ask yourself, how can I interact with this situation so that I can influence the right outcome for everybody, not just me, but everybody. Okay. Because if you are a participant in a good outcome for everybody, it's also a good outcome for you. Okay. So how can I interact, not control, but how can I interact with this situation where we can have the right outcome for everybody, not just me. And so for next week, I want you to be thinking about when was a time that you've been too controlling. All right, we can all there's long lists, right? So, but pick one, okay, and how would you have handled it differently? So I want you to think about that for next week, and we'll get into this much deeper. So we don't have any chats, so I think we will call this a wrap and have an amazing week. And I'll see everybody next Monday at 9 o'clock. Take care.